Welcome to Channel U.S. Ambassador to Canada Pete Hoekstra is more than disappointed. He's frustrated, baffled, and seemingly stunned that Canadians aren't exactly waving American flags these days. Speaking at a Halifax Chamber of Commerce luncheon, he delivered what can only be called a masterclass in diplomatic tone deafness, lamenting that in Canada, it's very, very difficult to find people passionate about the U.S.-Canada relationship. The irony? You could slice it with a hockey stick. Because this isn't just about bruised egos or awkward diplomacy. It's about years of economic strong-arming and political threats that have eroded one of the world's most stable bilateral partnerships. To see how we got here, you have to rewind. The story really begins with Donald Trump's return to power, when he wasted no time in weaponizing trade policy against America's closest ally. Let's talk about TikTok. There's been ongoing speculation that the platform could end up under U.S. ownership, with Oracle emerging as the likely buyer. The idea is that the Chinese parent company might agree to a divestiture, given TikTok's massive popularity in the United States. The Trump administration has repeatedly delayed its suspension of the app, leaving people wondering how this will ultimately play out. Will TikTok remain under Chinese control, or will we see a U.S.-based company take over? For now, the uncertainty continues, and so does TikTok's grip on millions of American users. Recent diplomatic developments have revealed just how far the U.S.-Canada relationship has unraveled. What began as tough negotiating quickly morphed into something far more dangerous, a direct challenge to Canadian sovereignty that has reshaped North American politics. From the moment Donald Trump returned to office, Canada was in his crosshairs. The threats came almost immediately. Sweeping tariffs on Canadian goods, accusations that Canada bore responsibility for America's fentanyl crisis, and even bizarre calls for Canada to give up its independence and become the 51st U.S. state. These weren't offhand remarks. They were sustained, deliberate attacks. Trump slapped a 25% tariff on nearly all Canadian exports, lumber, automobiles, even energy. At one point, he floated 50% tariffs on steel and aluminum. But the economic warfare was just the beginning. He mocked Prime Minister Justin Trudeau as Governor Trudeau, dismissing the U.S.-Canada border as an artificial line. From the Oval Office, he even declared, "What I'd like to see is Canada become our 51st state." According to Trump, Canadians would be better off under U.S. rule, with lower taxes and perfect military protection. It was breathtakingly condescending, but also calculated. Trump understood that nothing could rally Canadians more than threats to their sovereignty. And that's exactly what happened. By January, Trudeau was on his way out, his Liberal Party trailing Conservatives by 25 points under Pierre Poilievre. But Trump's escalating rhetoric flipped Canadian politics on its head. His attacks united voters in defense of their independence. Enter Mark Carney, the former Bank of Canada governor who took over Liberal leadership in March. Carney's message was clear. Canada strong, Canada sovereign. Canada united with Mexico in reshaping North America's future. BY 2026, Canada's approach to international relations had taken on a new assertiveness, born out of necessity. Once seen as America's most reliable partner, Canada now faced an existential challenge that demanded a different response. Mark Carney's answer to Trump's threats was exactly what U.S. Ambassador Hoekstra did not want to hear. Instead of bowing to pressure, Carney embraced what his campaign called an elbows-up strategy, a hockey metaphor about standing your ground against aggressive opponents. "We didn't ask for this fight," Carney declared, "but Canadians are always ready when someone else drops the gloves. In trade, as in hockey, Canada will win." The phrase that so offended Hoekstra wasn't anti-American. It was pro-Canadian. It was a perfectly rational response to unprecedented hostility from a supposed ally. When a president threatens your independence, imposes crushing tariffs, and mocks your prime minister as if he were a provincial governor, elbows up isn't just reasonable, it's essential. And yet, Hoekstra seemed genuinely baffled. You ran an anti-American campaign. Elbows up, it was anti-American, he complained, as if Canadians were supposed to welcome economic punishment and celebrate attacks on their sovereignty. His frustration was laced with stunning cognitive dissonance. Punch someone in the face, then fault them for not smiling back. The ambassador even objected to Canadian leaders calling the conflict a trade war, preferring the softer euphemism, trade dispute. But what else do you call it when one country slaps massive tariffs on another, threatens steeper ones, and demands political submission? If it walks like a trade war and quacks like a trade war, it's a trade war. The fallout was undeniable. Statistics Canada reported a 16% drop in exports to the U.S. after Trump's tariffs. Canadian tourism to America plunged, and boycotts of U.S. goods spread nationwide. The psychological damage was even deeper. 85% of Canadians rejected Trump's annexation rhetoric, while 63% believed he was serious about making Canada the 51st state. For ordinary Canadians, the shift was personal. Cam Hayden, who had visited 45 U.S. states, announced he would boycott America altogether. Forget it. I'm never going back until there's a change in the administration and a change in attitude. His view reflected millions who once saw the U.S. as a friendly neighbor but now regarded it as a threat. Politically, the effect was seismic. The Conservative Party's commanding lead evaporated almost overnight. Support for the Liberals surged. Not because Canadians suddenly fell in love with liberal policies, but because Trump's attacks created a rally around the flag effect that transcended partisanship. Carney, free to be unapologetically pro-Canadian, seized a moment, while conservative leader Pierre Poilievre struggled to reconcile his base's sympathy for Trump with the need to defend sovereignty. The irony of Hoekstra's complaints is that they reveal a complete misunderstanding of cause and effect. He frames Canadian nationalism as the problem, rather than as a response to American aggression. He demands passion for the U.S.-Canada relationship, while his president threatens to erase that relationship entirely. Worse still was the timing. Hoekstra delivered his Halifax speech just days after Trump doubled down on annexation, dismissing the border as an artificial line that should disappear. Against that backdrop, his complaints sounded less like diplomacy and more like delusion. The implications of this breakdown extend well beyond bilateral trade or tourism. What's unfolding is a wholesale realignment of North American politics, driven not by Canadian hostility, but by an American president determined to test the very idea of Canadian sovereignty. The strain between Washington and Ottawa is no longer just about tariffs or rhetoric. It's reshaping media freedom, public discourse, and the democratic fabric of both countries. For decades, Canada stood as America's most reliable ally, backing U.S. military interventions, sharing intelligence, and maintaining deeply integrated defense systems. The fact that Trump has managed to alienate such a crucial partner speaks to the self-destructive nature